So welcome to this third talk on the teachings of Master Linji. And today our subject is nothing to do, a very famous teaching of Master Linji, to be free where you are and to do everything in the spirit of being businessless, of having nothing to do. Today I would like to start with this with section number 12 from this book. And so I will read the section. Having nothing to do is the basis of a noble person. The most noble person is the person who has nothing to do. The only thing you should avoid is thinking about what you are going to do. All you need to do is to be an ordinary person. Be sovereign where you are and use that place as your seat of awakening. So, Master Linji is telling us that practicing is not hard work. In fact, 2 of the 7 factors of awakening are lightness and joy. And so, there's no way to lightness and joy, but being light and being joyful is the way. So our practice should embody that and not in the spirit of like hard work. And the only thing you should avoid, this was Master Linji tells us, is about thinking about what we are going to do, about thinking about the future. And restlessness is very much a sickness of our time, always thinking about what the next thing is to do and what to do next, because we don't feel so at ease in the present moment. And we think, what can we do in the future? What can we do next? And Master Linji says, be the person who has nothing to do. Just let go of all your business. Drink a cup of tea, enjoy looking at the flowers, enjoy the presence of the people around you. Be the person who has nothing to do and do everything from a place of freedom, not from a place of restlessness and running around. And there's a famous story of the Buddha giving a silent Dharma talk. So he was holding up a white flower and he was not saying anything. And everybody thought like, what is the Buddha going to say? He doesn't say anything. And only Mahakasyapa understood and he was smiling. And he enjoyed the presence of the Buddha and he enjoyed the flower. He was not waiting for anything. And this was a transmission without words. So Mahakasyapa just enjoyed the moment with the Buddha and with the flower, not waiting for anything, being free and not expecting anything. Thai would sometimes walk through the monastery, like the walking meditation, and sometimes he would include the kitchen in his walking meditation. And then the monks and nuns were cooking, and sometimes like a sister or a brother was cutting the vegetables. And Thai would ask, what are you doing? And when Thai asked that question, Thai of course can see what we are doing. But when Thai asked that question, it is an opportunity for us to show how much freedom we have in the work. And so it is a question, and we can see ourselves as guest and Thai as the host. And then we can see how successful we are as a guest. And so a smile can be an expression of, I'm successful and I'm not staying the guest, but the guest becomes the host. I am sovereign where I am and I master over the situation. But sometimes we are quite lost in the work that we are doing, and for example, we're saying like, I'm cutting the carrots. And I would be very disappointed when he heard an answer like that, will be quite disappointed. It means like, you don't show your freedom of the work. You're just cutting the vegetables. There's many ways to answer, but that is not a very good answer. And Master Linji says, all you need to do is to be an ordinary person. So you don't have to try to be perfect, to be good, or like hope for praise or approval from the outside. You do not have to try to become a Buddha or a saint. Just be an ordinary person. And sometimes we are looking for something outside of us, some kind of approval. And it's also because we don't feel very happy with ourselves, or we have some kind of inferiority complex. We think we may be not as good as others. So we can compare ourselves with Buddha or with the holy ones, with the masters, with successful people. And we may feel, some inferiority. And so a way to cover it up is to try to be special, to try to be not an ordinary person, but to try to show that we are, better than others, and that we can really accomplish something. And that can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be perfect, to be good, to be worth something. And then Master Linji says, relax. Just be an ordinary person. That is good enough. Don't put yourself under pressure. Be beautiful, be yourself. Be sovereign where you are, and use that place as the seat of your awakening. Be the king or the queen of the present moment, and be sovereign where you are. You don't need to go to India to sit under the Bodhi tree where the Buddha reached enlightenment. You do not need to go anywhere. Use this place where you are as the seat of awakening. And one day I remember standing in line in the supermarket here in Valbreuil, where I live. We have a supermarket close by. And one day I noticed my habit of rushing, of wanting to get out of the supermarket as quickly as possible. And so then I have a tendency to look at which line I think will move the quickest. How many people are there? How many products do they have in their baskets or in their shopping carts? And so but I noticed myself at that time. I was mindful enough, and I noticed that tendency. And I thought actually of Master Linji. And then I thought, okay, no, this is my seat of awakening. And I can practice right now, right here and now, to be peaceful, to be light, and to be joyful. And I can be sovereign in this moment and having nothing to do. In fact, when I'm rushing, I get out of the supermarket and I try to be home, then I bring a restless energy with me. We continue with on page 38. Do not search for Buddha. Buddha is just an empty term. Do you know who is the one who is searching? Because people do not have enough confidence in the mind, they mistake it for terms and phrases. They look for the Buddha's teaching in words and writings. Because of this, they are as far from the Dharma as the sky is from the earth. So, do not search for Buddha, because where do you want to find Buddha? The word Buddha is empty. It's just an idea in your head. And Buddha is not in India, so that's what we heard before. Buddha is right here and now. Do you know who is the one who is searching for Buddha? You have an idea about Buddha, but actually, do you know who you are? And maybe you should start looking at yourself first and look deeply at yourself and to recognize the beautiful person, the beautiful true person that you are, that is Buddha. You are not lacking anything. And that is what Master Linji tells us over and over again. You're not lacking anything. Why are you looking outside of yourselves? People do not have enough confidence in the mind. And the mind can give rise to the Pure Land or Kingdom of God. If we have confidence in our own minds, then we will not be looking outside of ourselves. And everything that we are looking for is available in this present moment. And that is what the practice of mindfulness can bring us. Confidence in our own capacity to make any one moment into the most wonderful moment. We have a song, and that is, "Here is the Pure Land. The Pure Land is here." We do not need to go anywhere. We do not need to wait for the future. So we come back to ourselves and we recognize our body and our feelings, and we take care of it just the way it is. And mindfulness can help us to transform painful feelings. It can also help us to recognize and not take everything for granted. So when we take things for granted, we're not appreciating the things. And so, for example, right now, I may not appreciate that I don't have a back pain. I may not appreciate that I don't have a toothache. I may not appreciate that I have something to drink, because I think it's normal. I take it for granted. But with mindfulness, I can actually recognize, no, I have had toothache in the past. I have had back pain in the past, and I know how painful it can be. And I know this. And I know that not everybody has access to clean drinking water like I do. So I can see, no, it's not to be taken for granted. And when I do that, I transform a neutral feeling, like a feeling that is neither pleasant nor unpleasant, I can transform in a pleasant feeling. So that is what mindfulness can help us with, to recognize all the wonders of life that are there, but we don't see them because we take them for granted. So have confidence in your own mind. It is very powerful. That's what Master Linji says. It can create happiness or suffering, and it's up to us. We continue with section 13, page 40. My friends, in the practice of the Buddha Dharma, there is no need for hard work. The principles are not to try to be anyone special, and to have nothing to do. If you put on your robe, eat your meal, urinate, defecate, and rest when you are tired, the foolish ones will laugh, but the wise ones will understand. So this is very much like the previous section, section 12. So we do not need to try to be special. We are human beings and we do very human things, like wearing clothes, going to the toilet, eating, drinking, and rest when we are tired. And we do not need to try to be Superman or to try to be Superwoman. We can give up all our efforts to try to be special. Be beautiful, be yourself, relax. You are already beautiful as you are. We continue on page 40. You should be sovereign according to where you find yourself. Be the true person wherever you are, not allowing the conditions around you to pull you away. Thus, even if your habit energies have been built up over 1,000 years, or you have committed the 5 inexpiable crimes. They will all become the ocean of liberation. So that's good news, that everything can become the ocean of liberation. And Master Linji says, you should be sovereign. You should not behave as a victim, but be sovereign where you are, and not letting the conditions around you pull you away. And sometimes we are being criticized, or we feel that we're not being heard or not understood, and we may behave as victims of the situation. And actually Thai once, he proposed a mantra, it's called the 6th mantra, to counterbalance our tendency to give too much weight to the opinions of others. And this mantra is, you are partly right. Whether it is praise or criticism, we are aware that the perceptions of ourselves, but also of other people, are not describing reality perfectly. That is impossible. And it's not separate from the mind of the person who has that perception. It is not objective reality. And the words of praise or criticism cannot describe reality. You are partly right. And very often people seem to be 100% sure that they are right. And actually we may believe that they're right because they say it with so much confidence, with so much certainty. And so we can use that mantra, you are partly right. And at the same time, also like when we see something, we can also be aware, I am partly right. Am I sure about my perception? No, I'm not sure. I'm also only partly right. And partly, of course, can mean anything between 0 and 100%. But it is good at least to know that, we're never 100% right, and the other person is never 100% right. And I saw that especially clearly in the corona pandemic over the last years, that people seem to have quite strong opinions about the virus and also about what to do and what not to do. And it seemed that everybody was holding quite tightly to their own view and their own idea, and that caused a lot of tension in families and in societies, communities. And not everybody can be right, and we can also be very humble about our own view and know that it's only a view. And we can be sovereign by being aware of that and not getting so much lost in the stories. So maybe sometimes people tell us something, they seem to be very sure, and we follow the story. But if we listen very deeply with the ears of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, we may actually hear things that are not being said. So we hear anxiety, we hear fear, we hear anger. And so we can focus on that. And so it's like taking away the object, as Master Linji said, like the stories, and focus our attention on the person. And that's what a good spiritual friend can do. So we take away the story. We're not focusing on the story, we're just focusing on the mind of the other person. What is that person feeling? And we listen, and in order to understand. And we can always ask ourselves the question, how can I best deal with the situation that is present and not be a victim, but be sovereign to where I find myself. And sometimes people come to me and they ask me for help. And it is quite a practice to be there, to be listening, and to listen in such a way that we're not being carried away by the story, by the storyline, but really be present for the person. And so sometimes people talk a lot, but actually it's already clear what the problem is, but still they talk. And then I try to listen in such a way that I can connect with what is underneath the stories, and to see, okay, I hear your suffering, and I hear your worries, I hear your anxiety. And this mindfulness of suffering can give rise to a heart of compassion. And just we offer our presence, mindful presence, and we listen with compassion. We're not only listening to the story, to the words, but we hear what is not being said. We listen to the feelings. We listen to the suffering underneath. And not only the external conditions in the stories are important, but most of all, the mind of the person who is sharing is important. And these, as we've learned before, we cannot strictly separate them, the person and the external conditions. And Master Linji says, even if your habit energies have been built up over 1,000 years, or you have committed the 5 inexpiable crimes, they can all become the ocean of liberation. And habit energies often have a negative connotation, but they don't have to be negative, of course. We have many positive habit energies, like brushing our teeth after a meal, or when we experience an emotion, we come back to our breathing, and we listen to the sound of the bell. We come back to our breathing, to our body, and we just relax. That is a practice that we can make more firm by listening to the following sound of the bell. So the 5 inexpiable crimes are killing your mother, killing your father, killing an arahat, or intentionally wounding a Buddha, or causing a split in the Sangha. So these crimes are considered to be the worst things that you can do, and all kinds of habit energies, like also ignorance, hatred, desire, they can all become the ocean of liberation. And whatever you have done, it can become the ocean of liberation, because everything is impermanent and everything can change. And in Buddhism, sometimes we hear samsara is nirvana, or we hear afflictions are awakening. And this is all very much in the spirit of non-discrimination, to see that everything is impermanent, and that in the mud we can recognize the lotus. And so we connect with the wisdom of non-discrimination, and suffering and happiness inter-are. And in fact, many people start practicing because of suffering. And so their suffering has a role to play. And it's not 100% bad, the suffering, but it can encourage us to find a way out of our suffering. And habit energies that create suffering for ourselves or for other people, or or all the wrongdoings, they can all become the ocean of liberation. And so suffering has a role to play on our path of liberation. In Buddhist psychology, we sometimes talk about manas, and it's a very discriminative mind, a mind that discriminates, and it is the basis of our afflictions, and it denies the goodness of suffering. And so part of transformation is also to see that no, suffering has a role to play, and there is goodness also in suffering. We continue on page 40. Most of those who study the path of Buddhism in our own time do not understand the Dharma. They are like goats who eat whatever is given to them. They cannot distinguish master from servant, guest from host. People like that enter on the path of practice with the wrong motivation. They are always ready to enter places of noise and disturbance. You cannot call them true monks. So also many people have a tendency to believe in certain authorities like Zen masters, scientists, very famous people, very charismatic people. And whatever these people tell us, we swallow it like goats who eat whatever is given to them without being able to discern. And it is like saying, oh, I have no idea. They must know better. And we behave like children, believing anything that our parents tell us about Christmas, about Santa Claus, being on the North Pole, riding around on a sleigh with reindeers and bringing gifts to all of us. And so we may believe it. And the Buddha taught us not to believe anything like goats who eat whatever is given to them. But we may have a first-hand experience and be open and try it for yourself and have a first-hand experience. And or to say it in the style of Master Linji, you already have a head. Why do you go look for another head? You have already a head to think with. Why do you go look for another head to think for you? And oftentimes these people do not see much better than we do, and they may lack insight, and so we may be blind people who are following other blind people. We continue on page 41. My Dharma friends with good eyes. So that's important. Like, you have good eyes, you don't, like goats, eat whatever is given to you. According to me, should topple both Buddha and Mara. If they still have the tendency to love the sacred and hate the profane, they will continue to drown in the ocean of birth and death for a long time. So this is a paragraph about non-discrimination. Sometimes we think Buddha is on one side, it's perfect, it's holy, it's wholesome, 100% good, and Mara is on the complete opposite side. He's evil, bad, 100% unwholesome. So we may make this discrimination, and the wisdom of non-discrimination can be achieved when we see the mud in the lotus, and we see that Buddha and Mara are a pair of opposites that exist in our mind. But in fact, they are not two separate realities. And so topple not only your idea about Mara, but topple your idea about Buddha as well, in order to be free. So these are just concepts, like worlds that we create with our mind, a Buddha world and a Mara world. But it's not like just throwing away the world of Mara. It's like throwing away the mud then at the same time we throw away the lotus. So that's in the spirit of non-discrimination, and that's a key point in Buddhism. We continue with section 18 on page 49. Seeking the Buddha and seeking the Dharma is to produce action, which can lead to the hell realms. Seeking the Bodhisattva fruit is the same. Studying the Sutra and the path is also creating action as cause and effect. Buddha and the masters have nothing to do. So that's quite relaxed. The Buddha and the masters have nothing to do. According to Master Linji, these people, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, are not seeking anything, also not in sutras or in commentaries. They have nothing to do. They are really businessless, free from business, free from an agenda. And if we still look outside of ourselves and study the sutra and the commentaries in the spirit of looking for wisdom in words, then we continue to run after something that we think we can find outside of ourselves. And we cannot avoid paying the price for this restless action. And the Buddha, the masters, on the other hand, they are people who have stopped, and they don't have anything to do. They are free. They're not looking for anything. They may enjoy reading a sutra or listening to a Dharma talk, but they do it in the spirit of having nothing to do. And there's a story one day that Linji, he saw his own teacher read a sutra, and Linji said, jokingly, he said, "Oh, I thought you were already enlightened. Why are you still chewing on black beans?" And in fact, his teacher was not reading because he wanted to become enlightened, but because he just enjoyed reading the sutra in the spirit of lightness, of ease, of joy, of having nothing to do, like drinking a cup of tea with a good friend. Continue on page 49. There are a group of blind-shaved heads who, having eaten their fill, sit down to practice meditation. They take hold of thought and do not allow it to arise. They cannot bear noise, but like quiet. They are all doing something and not yet practice, having nothing to do. So we may have many ideas about what correct practice is. And Master Linji here tells us correct practice is not this idea of like just sitting still and taking hold of thought and not allowing it to arise. You think that is the practice, or to sit still in a quiet place and you cannot bear noise. And this is just a form, and you can try very hard to attain something, and you sit still and you do not want others to disturb you. And even if you are able to find some peace of mind, then this peace of mind may not be very long lasting, because it is dependent on outside conditions. And we can become actually very attached to our own kind of practice, attached to a very quiet place. And when there's a little bit of noise around us, then we may get very upset. And Thai told us a story about a woman in Vietnam who liked to invoke the name of Amitabha Buddha. So every day that was a very important time for her to do some chanting. And one day a friend came, while she was chanting, a friend came and knocked on the door and called her name. And she was a bit annoyed because she thought like, well, I'm chanting, I should not be disturbed. So she started to chant a little bit louder so that the friend would get the message. But the friend didn't stop and continued to knock and call her name. And finally she couldn't bear it anymore, and she came to the door and she said like, well, are you are you crazy? Don't you hear that I'm reciting the name of Amitabha Buddha? I do not want to be disturbed. Why do you keep knocking and calling my name? And the friend answered very calmly. He said like, oh, but I just call your name for a few minutes and you are already very upset. But you call the name Amitabha Buddha, you call him 1 hour every day, so he must be very angry at you. So we can easily become very attached to an outer form of practice and forget actually why we are doing it. Why are we doing it when it doesn't bring us joy, lightness, freedom, stability? So that is important to remember. And we want to, what do we really want to reach? And we really want to understand ourselves better. We want to calm our minds. We want to be more joyful, to be more at ease, and not to get attached to a certain outer form of the practice, because like that, our practice has really become an obstacle for spiritual growth. And in the Sutra on the 42 chapters, there's a very famous line, and that is, my practice is the practice of non-practice. So I practice, but I do not rely on any kind of outer form of the practice. It is just very natural and in the spirit of having nothing to do and having nothing to attain. We continue on page 49. As for you who are here to listen to the Dharma, what should you do so that your person can practice, realize the fruits of the practice, and be a beautiful person? Your person is not able to practice, realize, or become beautiful. If you can teach someone to become beautiful, then everything can become beautiful. To practice and to realize the fruits of the practice, to be fresh, to be solid, to be free, and to have insight, to have clarity, that is the practice of being beautiful. And to be mindful of each action, that is a practice of being beautiful. But your true person does not need anything. Your true person is already beautiful the way it is. It does not need anything else. And you do not have to make an effort to make it more beautiful. And you are already this beautiful person. You do not need to look for anything else. And if you can teach someone to become beautiful, then everything can become beautiful. If you can teach a person to be mindful, to be fresh, to be lovingly, then that person can become beautiful, and the mind of that person becomes beautiful. And when the mind of that person becomes beautiful, then everything that the mind perceives becomes beautiful, because subject and object are two sides of the same coin. And when the mind is happy, then our perceptions have the color of that happiness. And if our mind is unhappy, then everything we see, we will always see the negative side of it, because it is colored by our negative state of mind. Page 50. If you hold to the words of the Zen masters and say that they constitute the true path, if you say these masters are good spiritual friends of inconceivable capacities, and if at the same time your mind is so profane you can't dare to estimate them, then truly you are blind. You will carry this prejudice complex with you all your life. You can't see what your own eyes could show you. So many people have a tendency to look for perfection, goodness, insight in other people, and at the same time to think, yeah, we are not as good. We may have an inferiority complex. So in Buddhism, we talk about 3 kinds of complexes, which are inferiority complex, superiority complex, and equality complex. They're complexes because they're all based on comparing ourselves with others. And Master Linji tells us here that to not be fooled, well, not to compare ourselves, of course, with others, and to be beautiful, just to be ourselves. We don't need to compare. But he also tells us that we should not be fooled by the outer appearance of Zen masters just because they look like a Zen master and blindly follow them. You have the eyes of the Dharma yourself, and open these Dharma eyes and have confidence in your own Buddha nature, and have confidence in your own capacity to wake up and to be able to distinguish authentic from false. And Master Linji is not telling us that we should not listen to Zen masters, but just out of his own experience, he had to be on the path and to learn to distinguish between authentic practice and fake practice. So he's telling us to not be blind and to trust our own eyes, our own Dharma eyes, and to not be fooled by the outer layer of clothes, but we can see with our own eyes, we can see the fruits of the practice in the form of freshness, stability, freedom, and that is what we can see in other people, like, for example, in Zen masters. And when I look back, I also see that at the beginning, of course, I did not know Thai very well. I knew him from books, or I saw a few Dharma talks. So I have an impression of him, and I have a certain respect for him. But it wasn't yet so deep because I didn't know him so well. I just saw the outer layer of clothes. So it took time for me and experience him in daily life, travel with him to many countries, and I could see his authentic practice. And so my respect grew deeper day by day, because I saw he lived a very simple life with a lot of freshness, a lot of stability. And so it was not so superficial anymore. It grew very deep because I could see with my own eyes. Page 51. The virtuous men of old taught, if on your way you meet someone who has realized the path, the best thing is not to talk about the practice with them. For the same reason, someone has said, if you have an intention to practice the way will not allow you to practice. All kinds of wrong circumstances will compete to arise. Once the sword of wisdom flashes forth, not a thing remains, because as long as the light has not appeared, the darkness appears as light. That is why the ancients said, the way is the ordinary mind. So if you meet someone who has realized the path, like for example Mahakashyapa, he saw the Buddha and he just enjoyed the presence of the Buddha. He didn't need to talk about the practice with him. So if we meet somebody like that, we just enjoy their company and the fruits of their practice, and that is a great gift. In fact, if we talk about the practice with them, we may get caught in their words and in their phrases and become an obstacle for us. And if you have an intention to practice the way will not allow you to practice. It is also because you see the way and yourself as 2 separate realities. But the way only manifests by going the way. And the way does not exist outside of the person who is going the way. There's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. With each step, we are on the way of happiness, and we are not separate from the path. And this also becomes clear when the Master says, once the sword of wisdom flashes forth, not a thing remains. And the sword of wisdom is the sword of Bodhisattva Manjushri, and we read his text last week, and that cuts through all kinds of illusions. Not a thing remains, not a thing of the illusion of a world of separate entities remains. This wisdom cuts through all signs and all forms to discover the true person without position. And this wisdom sees the light in the darkness and the darkness in the light, the insight in non-discrimination, like the yin-yang symbol, to see the black in the white and to see the white dot in the black. And the way is the ordinary mind. It is not the mind of wanting to be very special. Again, Master Linji says, be an ordinary person. Live your life in a natural way. Don't put up airs. And this is actually very clear in the next paragraph that I would just like to read, but not to comment on, because I think it's clear enough by itself, and it's a good conclusion of this paragraph 18. Monks, what are you looking for? You do not need to depend on anything, and since you lack nothing, you have nothing to search for. As I see it, there isn't so much to do. Just be ordinary, put on your robes, eat your food, and pass the time doing nothing. I'd like to continue with section number 19. We also talked about it last time, but there's so much in chapter 19 that I just like to continue with the next paragraph on page 57. My friends, if you wish to have correct insight into the truth, do not allow others to deceive you. Whatever comes to you, either from the outside or within, you should kill it immediately. If you meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha. If you meet the Master or an Arhat, kill him. If you meet your parents, kill your parents. Only then can you be liberated. Do not allow things to bind you, and you will be free and at ease. So be careful with this section, not that there's any kind of misunderstanding. Master Linji talks here about freeing ourselves from wrong perceptions and having the correct insight into the truth. And we should not allow ourselves to be deceived. All deceptions, whether about Buddha, whether about the masters, our parents, all these deceptions should be killed immediately. And deceptions have very many different forms, very many different outer layer of clothes. And we have an idea about the Buddha, then kill that idea, because it is an obstacle for you to touch the real Buddha who is present in the here and now. And you have an idea about your partner, about your children, then kill that idea so you can be in touch with the real partner, the real child that is in front of you, and not live with an idea that we have of others. And these are very famous words of Master Linji because they are so shocking. If you meet the Buddha, then kill the Buddha. Where is Buddha? Where is the Buddha that you are meeting? These are just obstacles. They're just things that exist in your mind and kill those deceptions. So you have a chance to be in touch with reality as it is. Use the sword of Bodhisattva Manjushri to cut through all illusions. And in Buddhism, we talk about different modes of perception. And sometimes we are able to touch reality directly as it is. But mostly we work with representations of reality. So we have an image of reality, we have an idea about reality, but it's very much like an image that we have of reality. So, for example, we may also have an idea about the Buddha in the form of a painting or in the form of a statue. And sometimes we bow and we have the impression that that is Buddha. And Master Linji says, that is not Buddha. If you think that that is the Buddha, then kill that perception of Buddha that you have. Kill it. You're just being deceived. We continue on page 62. When students come, I use 3 ways of determining in order to deal with 3 kinds of aptitude. If a student with less than average aptitude comes, I remove the object, but I do not remove his way of practice. If a student with higher than average aptitude comes, I will remove both the object and his way of practice. If someone with sharp and keen aptitude comes, I will remove neither the object nor the way of practice nor the subject. If a person with extraordinary insight comes, I face him with my whole person and do not put him into any category. So the good spiritual friend has different ways to interact with the students, and that's what Master Linji has talked about before. There's different ways according to the situation, according to the student, to deal with it. And over here, Master Linji mainly talks about the different kinds of aptitude that the student has. And to remove the object is very common in Zen. That's what we hear a lot, and it's something you can do with a person with less than average aptitude. For example, there's a famous story about a Zen student, and he goes to the teacher, and he asks the teacher about the essence of Buddha Dharma. So that's same old question. And then the master asked a question back. He asked, like, have you already eaten breakfast? And the student says, yes, I just ate breakfast. And then the Zen master says, then go wash your bowl. So he removes the object, the essence of Buddha Dharma, for the student to have a chance to be in touch with reality directly. But sometimes the Zen master also removes the way of practice. So sometimes we are too attached to a certain kind of practice, to a certain kind of outer appearance of a practice, and the master takes it away from us. Like, for example, in the situation of that woman who was chanting every day the name of Amitabha Buddha, then maybe a Zen master would say, like, you're too attached to that practice, and you should let go of it. You should do something else. And that depends. This is already a little bit more advanced, because if a person is not so advanced yet, then it may be too much to let go of a certain kind of practice, a certain way of practice. And in the case of good practitioners, nothing is removed, because there's no need for it. And if a person is extraordinary, then Master Linji says, then that student is like a good spiritual friend, and the teacher lets go of his role as a student and faces him with his whole person. He doesn't have anything to hide. He doesn't need to put on the robe of a teacher. He's just completely himself, and he faces him with his whole person, and he doesn't put him into any category. page 64. I play with spiritual transformations. I am able to penetrate all kinds of circumstances, and wherever I am able to preserve the practice of nothing to do. The object is not able to remove my true person. If anyone comes looking for me, I go outside to look at them. The visitor does not know me. I immediately put on a robe, of which I have many kinds. The student sees the robe and gives rise to some idea or other. He is immediately caught in my words and phrases. He mistakes the robes for me. So the robe here is standing for the different kinds of roles that we may play, and sometimes we wear the robe of a father, or sometimes of a mother, of the role of a boss, or the role of a friend. But that is not our true person. These are just outer layer of clothes, different roles that we play, but we do not need to be attached to our roles, and we can move freely between the roles that we play. And Master Linji, he plays different roles because he sees it needs to fit the situation. And he can wear the robe of a teacher or of a friend, of a father or a brother, but he's not caught in the roles that he is playing. He's free. Everything is in this practice, in the spirit of the practice of nothing to do in all kinds of circumstances. So that's a great level of freedom. Today I would like to invoke the name of the next bodhisattva, and that is Samantabhadra, and he's the bodhisattva of great action. And great action is to have an action with insight, with great insight of what is the right thing to do, and also what is the right thing not to do, in order to relieve suffering and to bring happiness to ourselves and others. And his action is the action of non-action, because he does it very naturally. He doesn't think that he is doing anything. So let's listen to one sound of the bell and listen to this text.
We invoke your name, Samantabhadra. We aspire to practice your vow, to act with the eyes and the heart of compassion, to bring joy to one person in the morning, and to ease the pain of one person in the afternoon. We know that the happiness of others is our own happiness, and we aspire to practice joy on the path of service. We know that every word, every look, every action, and every smile can bring happiness to others. We know that if we practice wholeheartedly, we ourselves may become an inexhaustible source of peace and joy for our loved ones and all species.
So I'd like to end today with a song, and this is a song that reminds us that our true home is only to be found in the here and now, and that's where we can have solidity and freedom. And we do not need to try to become anyone special. We don't need to go anywhere. And as Master Linji says, use this place as the seat of awakening, and wherever that place may be, at home, at work, in the supermarket, on the bus, we can use it as the seat of our awakening. And so if you like, you can sing along. I have arrived I have arrived. I am home in the here and in the now. I am solid. I am free. I am solid. I am free. In the ultimate I dwell. In the